Now I'm in the objects panel. I clicked on the primitives tool and it gives me this sphere by default. This is not a sphere that's been committed to a layer. This is just a preview. It's quite important to know, and that's a bit of a 3D code behavior that's different from other softwares. So then I can go through these different panels and I can change different primitives that we have here to pick from. So one of the more fun ones is, for example, this kind of curve. You can modify and get some structure you want to get. You get type. You can bring in an image. You can to modify this spring. So you have a whole bunch of them. They're fairly self-explanatory. I have a lot of controls to modify. So I don't want to explain all of them. You have the lattice box, which you can also modify per primitive. And once you are happy with the result, you hit apply. But you're still in a primitive tool. So usually I click W, this is my hotkey for transform, and I switch from primitive tool to somewhere else, and now I am able to move this stuff around as I wish. What I did here, I clicked on select mesh, clicked one of the objects that I had already done before, and I actually have a video on that on my channel. And then I have a preview here. You can run few operations. You can like after scale to different scale. This is where I'm a little bit not sure what type of scaling it does. When it does auto scale, then you can change the pivot point. You can reset space to regional scale. Sometimes I auto scale just to make it bigger. You have the options to input it as a child, so it doesn't get committed to the layer. You have to click input without voxelization, but we're already on the surface layer, so we don't really need to click on that. And you can import it with thickness. A lot of these options I prefer not to do just because they can bug out and can create a lot of trouble. You can add them later on. You can subdivide the mesh, and you also have an on brush option, which I will talk about in a second. So let's click apply, and it will apply it to a child layer. And it also gives this pop-up to keep the scale and dimensions of the object for the future. So I'll click W again to switch to transform tool. And you can see we have a convenient layer structure right now taken from OBJ. And I can then deal with this object. So then there is an on brush. On brush allows you to paint with the mesh. So if I drag with my right click out, now I have this stick into the surface and I can start painting with it. So kind of doesn't really make much sense painting with the vehicle. So I can pick models from this menu on my right. I can just pick, say, a bolt, a rivet around it and start painting with it. You have the brush controls on the left. They're the same brush controls as you have with other brushes we've talked before. Probably the most common thing I use is just trying to put it, shifting it higher or lower in the space if I want to put the thing inside or outside. Here you can bring your own kit brushes that you can buy any way you want. I even have my own free kit brush out there on Gumroad. And then you can build your robots, characters, or whatever you want. I do find the input tool to be fairly inconvenient because I'm so used to just any other software where you input mesh. You don't have to scroll into here and pick a mesh and then apply it to the layer. You have to get used to that. Next tool is the logo tool. It allows you to bring an image here and be turned into a mesh. So pick this smiley face I've done. Been running a couple of tests. I need to have a bump texture as well. And hit apply and take a few seconds to create a mesh. It's rather big mesh. And you can see the white values got pushed out, the black values got pushed in. And therefore, you can bring in some images and turn them into the mesh inside 3D code. Constructor allows you to build out of basic shapes, something that we want to build. I have to make it much smaller, otherwise this mesh gets huge, out like millions of polygons. So we can change placement, create a combination of objects. Some of the shapes look like an interesting thing for 3D printing. And that's basically what it does. Sketch tool is quite a powerful tool. So first of all, I have to exit the perspective mode, go into the orthographic one, and then press E and start to paint. So what I can do is if I press Control, I can remove all those fillers. I'll keep that one, and then I can start to unfill. And this is where we can use like triplanar projection to build shapes. And I've built stuff that is really quite complex because you can draw circles here, cut circles through, and it was worth building. And I've recorded a whole videos about usage of this tool for more complex designs. Once you have the shapes in, you can click apply and it will get committed to the layer. Sometimes one of the bugs that we have with the sketch tool that not everything gets committed. It will only be filled up by like a half. I don't really have a solution for those issues. But when it works quite spectacularly. So I recommend you guys to go check it out. Split tool I use all the time, allows me to split the shape into multiple other shapes. What I'll do, I change the border width to 0 so I can see the actual part, and then I can go change, press A, jump between, I'll look what's going on. So that's basically what it does, and it's super useful. Clone allows you to do a pretty cool thing. You can create a selection, so I'll do a complex selection of these objects, and then it re-inputs them into the scene. So then I can move this across, hit apply, and we get a cloned object that was like a part of the original one as a second, as a new object. And it's pretty cool. Cut and clone allows you to essentially cut it, and then when I move it across, it's no longer the part of that object, right? So we kind of extracted it and cloned it somewhere else. I could have also used split to cut it out and moved it somewhere else. So not exactly sure why we need the cut and clone tool, but that's what it does. Vox extrude allows you to extrude parts of the mesh. I can do this and say put offset to -0.001, hit apply, and you can see it's been extruded. You can see the edge is super sharp, and this what happened here, the mesh got turned into a surface mesh. This is how you can achieve super sharp edges in your design using this extrude tool. And if I want to cancel out the selection, I'll press Ctrl D. This is my hotkey to resample, and also that allows you to drop the selection. Otherwise, it kind of stays there forever. It's a bit of like a little bug inside 3D code. Vox layer allows you to create new objects, drawing them on the existing object, right? So I have this. Try to avoid using auto voxelize. It will slow the system down quite a bit. So create a surface. Here you set up the thickness and offset. So I'll hit apply, and there we go. The thickness and offset were really high. Created a huge objects, but let me go say put it at 0 and put the thickness at 0.1 and hit apply. You get much smaller ones, and you can also change the extrude direction if you need to achieve a different effect. And you get surface objects out, super sharp, can be something that you need. The code tool allows you to create like a box layer, but with curves. So we now have also a top panel that turned to the curves edit mode. And if I draw this guy out, say hit apply curve, I can then have to switch to like edit a curve tool, and I can move the stuff around, and it's like not less destructive, but still, you can see it can be pretty buggy. So I don't want to go too far away of the corner, but I can move it around and see what it does. And you can modify the curves and make them sharper or smoother, and somewhat like a non-destructive voxel extrusion. Next one is points to polygons. It allows you to create these points and then create polygons. But the thing is that this is a retopology tool that you would normally use inside Retoper Room. I'm not sure what it's doing inside voxel sculpting room and how to apply it, honestly. So it's a bit of a mystery tool, but that's what it does. The snake tool allows you just to draw this kind of snaky shapes around. It's similar with the spike. You can connect objects together, and toothpaste does almost the same thing as well, just different shape. And tubes and muscles, same idea. You can draw shape out. Can be used for some creative sculpting. Could be some feathers, for example. But they all kind of belong to the same family: snakes, spikes, toothpaste, and tubes and muscle. Then we have a cloth tool. So click on default object to create one. Move it a bit higher, then click on start, and it will create the cloth wrapping around. Pretty easy, really easy to do for some simple clothing. You can move the stuff around and drag it around. You can subdivide it to make it more dense, so you get more folds. And then if I click end seam, I need to click on this button, create cloth object. Otherwise, I will not get that mesh out. And there we go. We have our piece of cloth.